And welcome back to yet another disc review. Today's review, we are taking a look at the James Conrad Trail from MVP. Let's go ahead and begin this review by taking a look at the profile and the feel of the trail. Now the trail has a very just gradual shoulder and a slight domey feel to it, which makes it great for backhanded grips because it's going to fill the hand, but it's not super domey at all, just very gentle amount of dome. So even if you're prominently a forehand thrower, this is also going to feel very good for your forehand grips. Now the inner part of the rim, though it's very stiff, actually is slightly rounded, so it doesn't feel like it's digging into your hand or digging into your fingers, which I greatly appreciate because that means I'm going to have full confidence in both backhand and forehanding grips. And for the flight numbers, the trail is a controllable distance driver of a speed 10, glide 5, turn -1, and a fade of 1. But let's get out to the field and see just how the trail flies. When I throw it on a hyzer angle, the trail holds pretty well. It almost wants to flip up to flat. It doesn't quite get there, but I do get a little bit of a flip up before it has a pretty decent finish at the very end of the flight. And when I do get it flat, it rides out pretty straight in the mid-flight. It just gets a little baby meandering turn before having just a little bit of a finish. And the amount of finish that you get is going to be dependent on how much height. If you throw it low, it's going to get very little finish. If you throw it high, it's going to progressively get more and more, as it does kind of like to stall and then just kind of drop out of the sky. But if you do get it on a little bit of an anhyzer line or throw it low, the trail will have a good forward penetrating finish. And since the trail does have that -1 to the turn, if you do get this on a little bit of an anhyzer line, it is going to hold that anhyzer a good portion of the way, but then towards kind of the last third or quarter of the flight, it is going to stable up and it is going to hyzer back, which means you don't have to worry about the trail turning over into an incidental roller. It can hold power very well. It can hold control turnover shots if you're a faster arm. Just all around, this is a great controllable distance driver. And if you're an amateur player, this may be one of the better speed 10s that I have ever thrown. It is definitely one of the straightest flight speed 10s that I have ever thrown. For me, speed 10s tend to be on the more overstable side unless they're incredibly understable. This, I can throw this flat. It's going to get a little bit of turn, and then it's going to have just enough fade to get back to dead center. If I throw it on a slight anhyzer, it's going to hold that turn a little bit, but for fighting out at the very end, it works great backhand. It works great forehand, and what I love is that it has enough torque resistance for both backhand and forehand that I almost get the same flight out of the trail forehand as backhand, and that is very rare. Usually if I'm using a disc backhand, it's because he can't handle my forehand torque. Well, this disc can. Definitely cannot say enough great things here about the trail. Now let's get out and actually see it on the course. For this hole, you need a very straight flight with a dumpy finish at the very end. Just throw the trail, either power down a little bit, slightly nose up and high, and it's going to keep that very straight flight and then again have that dumpy finish. For this hole, you want to have a disc that's going to start on an anhyzer line, kind of hold the turn a little bit before flexing back as the basket is in the center of the fairway, and the trail makes short work of that. Holds the turn a little bit, and then about 2/3 of the way through the flight, it stables up and then fights its way out. For this shot, you have a defined fairway in a very narrow gap. When it comes to the trail on forehand, just have to keep it on a little bit of a hyzer angle, get it to flip up to flat, you'll get a little bit of turn in that mid-flight before keeping you through that gap and then swinging you back into the middle of the fairway. This is just kind of a simple approach shot, a little bit wider of a fairway than we had on the last hole, and for this it's just pretty much almost carbon copy. Just throw it with a little bit of hyzer, get it to flip up to flat, and then just have a little bit of a baby hyzer underneath the basket. I really can't think of any other control speed 10 drivers that has such pinpoint accuracy control that the trail has, both for backhand and forehand shots. So with all that said, I really didn't know what discs to pit the trail against. So I opted to pick up the Gorgon, the new Innova Speed 10 distance driver. And as you can see, the Gorgon, as expected by the flight numbers, has a lot more turn in the mid-flight than the trail does. And then also the Insanity over from Axiom discs, again, and part of the MVP family, just kind of showing the difference that I think the trail is kind of the big brother to the Insanity. Or if the Insanity is maybe just a little bit too understable for you, not as straight, the trail is going to be considerably straighter, and honestly I don't think it doesn't have nearly as much of the fade. And then when compared to the Gorgon, obviously a lot straighter. Gorgon's going to have a lot more turn, but I will say I was surprised that the Gorgon had a little bit more fade at the end of the flight than I was expecting. But overall, trail is going to be the straightest and more slightly overstable of the group. Well, everyone, that is all I have for you today. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe and like if you haven't already. Overall, I think the trail is a fantastic controllable distance driver, and I think it is going to be very quickly one of the most popular Speed 10 drivers out on the market. Amateurs rejoice. This thing is incredible, and honestly, I think players of all skill levels will really be able to make great use out of the trail. Well, as always, please visit GreatLakesDisc.com for your disc buying needs, and be sure to use code LEFTY at checkout to save yourself 10%. Until the next one, everyone, keep banging chains.